do have a lot of information being presented today that should really give you a better mind around how bridges can work within Hedera and across different blockchain networks like Polygon and Ethereum. One of the teams at the forefront of this is Hashport. Hashport, I believe, initially announced just about a few weeks ago, so it's very early on an exciting project for them. They have a number of parties involved, which we'll get into as they start to build out their governance, which is very neat and a critical component of what they do. But really today we're talking about exploring worlds of possibility with Hashport, porting those digital assets across Hedera, Ethereum, and Polygon. There's a ton that goes into this, both on the engineering side and that governance side. So I think it'll be a really good talk. If you do have any questions, please put that into the Q&A portion of the Zoom, and we'll be sure to try to get to them, as many of those as possible as we can at the end of the talk. So please throw those in there. And I hope you enjoyed today's presentation. I believe we'll get a live demo as well. Hopefully, if all things go well, fingers crossed, of course, on a live demo. But we should have a good talk. So with us today are Jesse and Xander from the Hashport team. Guys, thank you so much for joining us and looking forward to learning a little bit more about Hashport.
Thanks, Garrett. Hi, everyone. My name's Jesse. I'm the Director of Business Development for Hashport. And today joining me will be Xander from our technical team. Xander will walk us through a live demonstration during today's session. As Garrett mentioned, the topic for today's webinar is exploring worlds of possibility with Hashport, porting digital assets across Hedera, Ethereum, and Polygon. So as distributed ledger technology becomes a critical infrastructure for the world's most valuable assets, it's becoming more and more essential to have portability and interoperability between the various networks that these assets reside on. Hashport is a public utility that will facilitate this movement of digital assets, and over the next 30 minutes or so, we'll provide everyone here with an overview of how Hashport achieves quick, low-cost transactions through the use of the Hedera Consensus Service and the Hedera Token Service. We will also take a deep dive into DLT interoperability, some of the most applicable use cases for Hashport, and finally a live demo for everyone to observe. So what is Hashport? As we just mentioned, it's an interoperability solution that will allow for quick, secure, cost-effective transfers of your digital assets between various distributed networks. Initially, the platform will connect the Hedera, Polygon, and Ethereum networks for users to port their assets via representative versions of their tokens. Now, who is Hashport? Hashport is comprised of a validator swarm that is put together from a group of industry-leading organizations from around the world. WorldPay from FIS, the HBAR Foundation, Polygon, Animoca Brands, Hex Trust, Maker Growth, Galaxy, BCW Group, and LimeChain fill out the current swarm configuration. Each of these companies encompasses a specific aspect of the larger DLT industry, including payments, foundations, networks, gaming, custodial services, DAOs, social tokens, and professional services. A global leader in DLT development, LimeChain has been driving the back-end development for Hashport, while BCW Group has been focusing on the productization and go-to-market activities for it. These highly regarded organizations look to provide a level of functional trust that just has not been seen to date in current interoperability solutions. Really quickly want to walk everyone through how Hashport actually works from start to finish. So users will initially bring their supported tokens to the platform and will submit a request for transaction on the platform. The validators are actually continually listening for such requests, and when a given validator registers this request for transaction, they immediately create a scheduled transaction and begin to circulate it to the rest of the validators for signature. Upon reaching a supermajority vote, which in this case is 6 out of 9 signatures, the creating validator submits that transaction to a Hedera Consensus Service topic, and that gets logged immutably, confirming with 100% finality in seconds on the Hedera public ledger. A subsequent message is then sent to the endpoint smart contract that resides on the destination network. This tells that smart contract to mint an equivalent amount of the representative token for the user and deposits them into the user's destination wallet. Now, you all must be wondering, what should I do on the other side? Hashport looks to enable many different use cases for a variety of user groups, increasing their choices and opportunities while also reducing friction in the process. Individual users will now be able to earn rewards on their representative version of their tokens by providing liquidity to several pools on the QuickSwap protocol on Polygon. Specifically, HBAR OXMY. For providing liquidity to these pools, users earn reward fees as well as quick reward tokens. This is just being announced today and will be going live as of Wednesday of this week. These liquidity pools aren't reserved just for select users. They're accessible to anyone around the world. And now that Hashport has launched, users can port those assets across multiple networks and actually build their own pools. It's not just limited, but these we feel are the best starting point for users to get into. These new interoperability opportunities between ecosystems allow users to access different protocols and decentralized applications on the supported networks. With respect to developers, they now actually have the ability to potentially migrate their entire dApp infrastructure or platform to another network altogether, should they wish to do so, or expand their reach to different networks while remaining their same basis of operations. In terms of institutional use cases, these enterprises will now have the ability to augment traditional workflows and in the process increase operational efficiencies. So with that, I'd like to pass the stand over to Xander, and he will take us through a demo.
Thanks, Jesse. Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. I'm Xander, and we'll go through a quick demo of the Hashport portal today. Let's get started. First, I'll go ahead and connect my accounts. You might know them as wallets. In the top right corner, I'll tap Connect Accounts here to see a list of wallets that are supported on Hashport so far. First, I'll connect my MetaMask. After clicking MetaMask, I get a notification in my browser to unlock my accounts, so I'll go ahead and do that now. Now that that's unlocked, you can see that the pop-up closed and a green dot appeared next to MetaMask to tell me it's connected successfully. In our demo today, we'll go ahead and import a Hedera account. Want to pause here to show the different account import options: uploading a key store file, entering a mnemonic phrase, or private key. In the future, we'll also include a couple of software wallet options as well, so stay tuned. Moving along, I'll click private key, paste that in, and tap load wallet. Here we show the public key and the Hedera account ID before continuing. If you don't see an account ID in the text field, you can quickly copy your public key and visit portal.hedera.com to register on the network and get an account ID. You may also have a Hedera supported software or mobile app that does this for you, so feel free to check with any other options you may already have. Otherwise, the account ID will automatically be fetched from the Hedera network like I have here. Now that that's done, I can click continue. You'll see that both accounts are in the top right corner of the screen and displays their respective balances, which will be useful to ensure we have sufficient funds for the porting execution. Speaking of porting execution, let's go through it now. So first, select the token. Here's a list that Hashport supports at the moment. You can also add tokens to your MetaMask and view existing token balances on the same network. I'll go ahead and select HBAR here. Now I'll select the to network. This is the foreign network that my HBAR will be projected to. I'll click the Metamatic network for this demo. An amount text box will show up, and I'll enter an amount for the porting execution. Next step is just to click port, and a confirmation receipt page will appear to give a summary before I run through the porting execution steps. It gives me details like the amount, the projection, the service fees, and an estimate on what I'll receive on the foreign network, the projected HBAR on Matic in my case. The estimated gas fees and current gas price will also be displayed on this page to give me a better idea of how much I'll need to pay to complete the execution. I'll go ahead, click continue, and now onto the T's and C's. We'll make sure that users consent to the terms before continuing, and if we agree, we can type I understand to continue. After doing so, I'll tap on submit, and a list of mostly automated steps appear to complete the porting execution. First was a pre-flight check to make sure I had everything I needed, stuff like checking balances in my connected accounts, making sure that I'm on the right network, those kinds of things. Next was sending the HBAR to the Hashport portal, and we're on to the verifying transaction step already. So this takes about 20 seconds where the Hashport validator swarm confirms the transaction, and after doing so, we're on to step number 4. Step number 4 will have the app send a transaction over to MetaMask, which I'll be prompted to sign and confirm. After clicking confirm, the transaction is actually sent to the Matic smart contract, and that's about it. We will wait about 30 seconds here for the Matic network to confirm the transaction, and after that, we should be able to confirm that we've received the projected tokens in step number 5. Cool. After the porting execution is done, a download transaction receipt and a complete button is displayed. For accounting purposes, you can download the transaction receipt, which gives a list of transaction hashes and IDs to help you keep track of the assets you've ported. When I'm happy to close this dialog box, I can tap complete, which takes me back to the main page. From here, I can explore different ways to use the tokens I ported or start another porting execution. That's the end of this demo. I'll go ahead and pass it back over to Jesse. Thanks, everyone.
So next, I really wanted to quickly touch on where we're looking to take Hashport in the future. And over the coming months, we are going to be looking to quickly expand to many of the popular networks that are out there currently, and integrate them into Hashport. And once that occurs, users will be able to move from various networks and in between whichever direction that they'd like to go into. Over that span of time, we're also looking to add a lot of the tokens that also reside on these networks as well, and really give users that level of choice and flexibility with where they can take their assets and the networks that they can interact with. So in order to get a hold of us on social media, these are all of our various networks that we're connected to. Please follow us on your favorite preferred one, and please feel free to reach out to us anytime. We're happy to connect and take feedback and hear from everyone in the community. And that's everything that we have for the presentation today, and I'll pass it back to Garrick, and we can go through questions.
Thanks so much, Jesse. Exciting to see this start to come together. And I know users are very excited about the possibility of moving these assets between different networks very easily. In terms of where you guys are seeing the market head, you talked a little bit about the types of applications that make sense for these networks. Do you see them, typically integrating Hashport with an API-based system or using the front end almost entirely?
That's a great question. So it actually over time will be both ways. So there will be the front end aspect of integrating, but also there will be a secondary channel that is being built for specifically for use cases that require an API integration that would allow for back end functioning with Hashport.
Makes sense. And do you see, a need to have, I guess, as you determine which networks to add to Hashport, what's kind of your decision-making process for that and how you guys are considering these other networks?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question as well. We like to take a holistic approach with that, and obviously the community is, weighs heavily on that in terms of input and feedback. Obviously, there are quite a few networks out there that are very popular currently that we think users might users and enterprises or developers might like to have access to. So that really will be our guiding principle in terms of the direction that we take in terms of integrating different networks.
Makes sense. And then some Hashport specific questions here. The 0.5% fees are paid in HBAR or another network's currency?
That's a great question. So the 50 basis point fee is charged in the native asset that is currently being ported. So dependent on which asset you're selecting and where you're going to, that 50 basis points will be applied at the time of transaction with the assets that are being moved across, or a representative version is being created, I should say.
I see. And so just to clarify, if I'm getting my HBAR and wanting to move that to Polygon, the fee would be an HBAR.
Correct.
Makes sense. And then we had some questions, which is very exciting to have an announcement on quick rewards on QuickSwap. Could you explain what that is a little bit more and how people get involved?
Yeah, so basically what QuickSwap does is to incentivize users to partake in the liquidity pools there. They have what's called quick rewards, and every day a certain amount of quick rewards or quick reward tokens, I should say, are allocated to specific liquidity pools. In this case, the liquidity pool in question will be HBAR OX and the MY stablecoin. So every day, users who provide liquidity to that pool will partake in those additional rewards on top of the standard fees that are being collected by liquidity providers, if that makes sense.
Yeah, super interesting. That makes sense. And then in terms of the ability, Fernando had a question on support for other wallets other than MetaMask. Do you guys see other integration options in the future as well?
Yep, that's a great question too. We absolutely are looking to integrate other wallets and features in addition to networks and tokens being added. So over time, we really want Hashport to be a complete solution that really is inclusive of as many users as possible and use cases. So if that requires adding, popular wallets or items that are going to add additional functionality to Hashport, we're definitely interested in partaking in that.
Totally. That's great to hear. It makes sense. I think there's, a lot of interest on the Hedera side as well as, I've seen a recent HIP for supporting the same signatures, for instance, that are used in MetaMask. So hopefully there can be some integrations on that side too, which would be exciting.
Yeah, that would be wonderful.
Agreed. And then, just in terms of other questions, I think some people had a question around, Hashport in terms of operating and connecting to these other networks, if you need some type of agreement in place with the network itself, or is it just a permissionless kind of ability for Hashport to support other networks?
Yeah, so I mean, in the way that all of these other networks that were showed today during the presentation, and pretty well all of the distributed networks out there, you don't really need permission to partake in those networks so long as you are operating under the sort of rule set of those given networks. So what Hashport looks to do is streamline that process for users so that all they need to worry about is bringing their assets that they would like to create representative copies of. Mm-hmm. And essentially on the other side, they get a token, a representative token that is compatible and can operate within the confines of those networks. But in terms of actually getting a explicit permission, that's just not something that's needed. It's more so going to where the users might find the most utility that really dictates the decision making.
Right, absolutely. And we have a few questions on the process of those tokens going from one network or another. Would you mind pulling up that slide again, just for context?
Yeah, sure. Just this slide?
No, the one
Oh.
that steps through kind of the
Oh.
step changes of a token. Yeah, this
Yep,
one I
there we
believe.
go. Sure.
Very helpful. And related to that, just to clarify, one question was asking, when you use hashport to port assets to another network, for instance, Matic, are you actually swapping your HBAR for Matic tokens, or is it technically HBAR but reminted on Matic? Could you maybe just walk us through this process a little bit again?
Yeah, sure. So the HBAR actually not ever leaving the Hedera network. What is happening is the users in the case of HBAR are coming to Hashport and they are putting in a request for transaction to the validators. What happens with those HBAR at the time is they get locked onto Hashport within the Hedera. If they're coming from Hedera, obviously within the Hedera network, they're being locked onto in an account with which the validator swarm controls with a multi-signatured solution. So when that happens and they get the requisite amount of signatures, then they are sending a message to a smart contract on Polygon, which then tells the contract to mint an equivalent amount of ERC20 representative tokens that are HBAR OX. So the HBAR, original HBAR don't leave Hedera. It's just a new version or a representative version of HBAR is created on the destination network. Now, coming back, I should say, when coming back, it's the same process in reverse, only the user is then submitting, if they bring their HBAR OX to the portal, and are asking to go back to Hedera, they're submitting a request to burn those HBAR OX. And upon achieving the supermajority of signatures, that occurs, and at such time, the user's original HBAR are unlocked from the portal and redeposited into their given Hedera account, if that makes sense.
Yeah, Jesse, I think that helps clarify things. And semi-related to that question, I think I understand the answer, but the question is, are there going to be issues with not being able to have liquidity on that receiving chain or network?
Well, that really is going to be up to the community to make something of that. Obviously, the quick rewards are going to start to help with that, with users wanting to partake to take advantage of those rewards. And as time goes on, I believe, liquidity will just become better and better over time as more and more people want to take part.
Sure, absolutely. And then, we've talked a lot about kind of fungible tokens, I believe, in the most sense, an HBAR and cryptocurrency. What about NFTs? Where do they fit into this model?
Yeah, great question. So we are currently building out that functionality for support for NFTs, ERC 721s. And that functionality is slated to be completed by year end. And at such time, users will be able to also move representative copies of their ERC 721 NFT tokens to different networks and potentially take them onto different marketplaces where there might be better liquidity or more exposure. So that is definitely a feature that is coming to Hashport.
Very exciting. That'll be a lot of fun to see those. And I guess adjacent to this question were questions around, do you see any specific enterprise use cases making sense and where you guys are seeing the most momentum there?
Yeah, there's quite a few potential use cases that can come about from enterprise adoption and use of the platform. Nothing concrete at the moment that I can touch on, but just really, if you think about use cases in terms of streamlining traditional business practices, in terms of the traditional payment infrastructures that are in place, and those legacy systems that really have slow processes or costly processes, Hashport could effectively help to sort of rewrite those processes and allow for a streamlined potentially payments infrastructure or settlement layer between different institutions.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think, maybe a clear example in my mind, or at least one that's portable across different industries, is, gaming, wherein, maybe different games operate based on different networks. And something like Hashport allows you to port those assets from game to game a little bit more seamlessly as needed.
Yeah, that's another portion there that you touched on that I forgot to mention, in terms of gaming ecosystems and the ability to have different user bases on different networks potentially interact with the same game. And just have bigger and more diverse communities over time for these different types of games might be a very big use case over time.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think that same kind of pattern could potentially be applied to identity credentials and the like, in a more kind of practical, real world way, which is interesting.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, good. Okay, I think that we covered a lot of good ground here. Roland, here, I'll ask your question. We always like to hear from Roland. Is there a plan to grow the group of validators, nodes, partners, however you want to define those?
Another good question from my friend Roland. Hi, Roland. Yeah, that's something that, in the future might be discussed. Again, sort of just to touch on the way that Hashport will be governed is going to be directly through the validators creating their own governance council, much the same way that the Hedera governing council operates. So over time, if the council gets together and decides that's in the best interest of the platform, that's absolutely something that could be on the table. But that would definitely be something that the council will vote on amongst themselves and determine what is the best way forward.
That's great. Well, fantastic. Any parting thoughts here, Xander, Jesse? I really appreciate the time, and hopefully this gave people a better insight into how you can start to port assets from Hedera to other networks.
Yeah, just really quickly, I think we're in very early days with being able to explore the different types of use cases and possibilities that will come from interacting and connecting with a lot of these other networks. Very exciting, and I think that over time we're just going to see more and more of it. As you well know, our world is very interconnected, and it seems every day that becomes more so. So I think, as time progresses, we're going to see a lot of different use cases for the platform as well as for users' tokens on different networks.
Absolutely. Well, we're excited to see that continue. That's it for everyone. We'll have a recording of this session on YouTube within the next few days. For those in the US, I hope you have a great Thanksgiving if you're celebrating. Thank you all for joining us today, and we hope to see you on the next one.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.